Boxing is a sport where legends are made and unmade inside the ring. One punch, one fight, one night can redefine an entire career. For over a decade, Canelo Alvarez was not just the face of Mexican boxing, but of the sport itself, carrying the weight of expectations, pressure, and history on his shoulders. He wasn't just dominant, he was untouchable, a four-division world champion, undisputed at super middleweight, and the highest-grossing pay-per-view fighter of his generation. But in 2025, under the bright lights, all of that invincibility was shattered in a fight that fans thought would confirm his immortality. Instead, it reminded us that time is undefeated. Terence "Bud" Crawford, already a legend in his own right, handed Canelo his third career loss, and this one felt different. Against Mayweather, he was too young. Against Bivol, he was too small. But against Crawford, there were no excuses. The loss has left fans, experts, and critics asking the same haunting question. Is this officially the end of Canelo Alvarez's era of dominance?
Uppercut again for Álvarez. Now downstairs and another left hook right on the button.
That's dirty trickery right there by hand. Holding on to Canelo with a headlock, but that's what you have to do to frustrate the younger fighter.
Backed against the ropes, comes out swinging. Canelo catches him clean again. And a fight is breaking out.
The rise of Canelo Alvarez. To understand what is at stake, you need to know how far Canelo climbed. Born in Guadalajara, Mexico, in 1990, Álvarez grew up in a humble family. He discovered boxing as a teenager, inspired by his older brothers who were already fighters. At just 13, he stepped into the amateur ranks, but it didn't take long for everyone around him to realize he was special. With his striking red hair and fiery temperament, he earned the nickname Canelo, meaning cinnamon. By 15, he turned professional, a rare and risky decision, but one that showcased the confidence his camp had in him. Canelo's early career was built on the gritty boxing circuit of Mexico. Fighting often against older and tougher opponents, he quickly developed his signature style, punishing body shots, compact defense, and the patience to break down opponents. Within a few years, he was a national sensation, and soon, international promoters began to take notice. By 2011, at the age of 20, Canelo captured his first world title by defeating Matthew Hatton for the WBC super welterweight crown. It was clear that Mexico had a new star, one poised to follow in the footsteps of Julio Cesar Chavez. But what made Canelo different from many young champions was his hunger. He wasn't content with one belt or one division. He wanted it all. He headlined cards in Las Vegas, drew millions on pay-per-view, and established himself not just as Mexico's pride, but as boxing's most marketable figure worldwide.
Canelo Alvarez!
Canelo's legacy as a champion. Over the next decade, Canelo's resume became one of the most impressive in modern boxing history. He conquered 4 weight classes: junior middleweight, middleweight, super middleweight, and even light heavyweight. Each time, he didn't just win titles, he did it against elite opposition. Victories over legends like Miguel Cotto and Shane Mosley solidified his reputation, while the trilogy against Gennady Golovkin elevated him into boxing's pantheon. Those fights weren't just battles for belts, they were wars for legacy, with millions tuning in to witness every moment. Perhaps his greatest achievement came in 2021, when he unified all 4 major belts at super middleweight by defeating Caleb Plant. In doing so, Canelo became the first undisputed champion at 168 pounds in boxing history. This was more than just a milestone. It was a statement that he wasn't just Mexico's best fighter, but one of the greatest of his era. Outside the ring, Canelo's impact was massive. He became one of the highest-paid athletes in the world, signing a record-breaking $365 million contract with DAZN in 2018. He brought Mexican Independence Day fights back to prominence in Las Vegas, a tradition that drew tens of thousands of fans. In terms of influence, earnings, and accomplishments, his place in boxing history seemed secure. But even the brightest stars eventually encounter shadows. One Floyd Mayweather 2013. In 2013, the boxing world witnessed the young Canelo's first test of greatness against Floyd Mayweather Jr. at 23 years old. He was undefeated, powerful, and confident. Many believed his youth and aggression could finally solve Mayweather's puzzle. But what unfolded was a masterclass in boxing. Mayweather's defensive brilliance, quick counters, and ring IQ completely neutralized Canelo. Canelo tried everything: pressure, body punches, cutting off the ring. Yet Mayweather made him miss and pay every time. The fight went the distance, but it wasn't close. The scorecards read 114 to 114, 116 minus 112, and 117 minus 111, giving Mayweather a majority decision victory that most felt should have been unanimous. Critics accused Canelo of being too raw, too green for such a challenge. But instead of breaking him, this loss became a turning point. Canelo took the lessons of patience, adaptability, and defensive responsibility and rebuilt his game. It was his education in boxing's elite school, and he emerged sharper and hungrier.
Time with Caleb Plant. He finally found a hole for the right hand to the gut.
Throwing that jab, because when they watch back the Kovalev fight, they know of the sheer volume of punches, jabs specifically, that Kovalev was throwing.
Look at him throwing.
He has smart feet.
To Dmitry Bivol 2022. Fast forward nearly a decade, and Canelo faced another uphill climb when he moved up to light heavyweight to challenge Dmitry Bivol in 2022. By then, Canelo was at the peak of his powers, undisputed at 168 and considered the pound-for-pound king. The challenge of Bivol was ambitious but risky. Standing taller with longer reach and natural size, Bivol presented a puzzle that Canelo couldn't crack. From the opening bell, Bivol established control with a stiff jab and disciplined footwork. Every time Canelo tried to close the distance, Bivol met him with combinations that forced him backward. Canelo landed hard shots, but couldn't sustain offense against the bigger man. Over 12 rounds, Bivol dictated the pace, and though the scorecards read 115 minus 113 across the board, most observers felt the Russian won decisively. The defeat raised questions. Had Canelo finally bitten off more than he could chew? Critics argue that his power, so devastating at 168, didn't translate against a true light heavyweight. Others wondered whether age and mileage were beginning to show. Still, because the loss came at a higher weight, fans were willing to forgive. Canelo returned to super middleweight, defended his belts, and kept his reputation intact.
You say Canelo was looking to be friends, and Crawford is not looking to be friends.
Great exchange from Terence Crawford right there. Canelo's landing, but not like Terence Crawford in this exchange.
This is furious action.
3 Terence Crawford 2025. Then came 2025, the fight that shook boxing to its core. Canelo Alvarez versus Terence Bud Crawford was billed as a clash of eras, undisputed champion versus undisputed champion. For years, fans debated who the better fighter truly was, and when the contracts were signed, anticipation reached a fever pitch. But once the fight began, it became clear that Crawford had the formula. Switching effortlessly between orthodox and southpaw, Crawford controlled the rhythm with a sharp jab and slick counters. Every time Canelo tried to pressure forward, he was met with precision shots that disrupted his rhythm. By the middle rounds, Canelo looked frustrated, swinging wildly while Crawford maintained composure. Statistically, the fight was telling. Crawford landed 115 punches to Canelo's 99. The judges' scorecards read 116 minus 112, 115 minus 113, and 115 minus 113, all in Crawford's favor. For the first time since 2015, Canelo walked away without a belt. This wasn't a loss in an unfamiliar division or against an all-time defensive wizard in his youth. This was a prime-for-prime battle in Canelo's natural weight class, and he was outclassed. Emotionally, the fight carried another layer. Canelo had admitted before the bout that the birth of his daughter had been a distraction in training camp. While that humanized him to fans, it couldn't mask the reality. Crawford was the better man that night. And for the first time, the whispers grew louder. Was Canelo finally on the decline?
Well, he felt like if he could get this fight, he could produce a performance that would earn the respect. Down the stretch we come. And there's the final horn. Terence
What went wrong in the Crawford fight? Breaking down the loss reveals several critical factors. First, age. At 35, Canelo is no longer the explosive counterpuncher of his 20s. Reflex is slow, endurance fades, and recovery takes longer. Against Crawford, those tiny declines were magnified. Second, stylistic mismatch. Canelo thrives against fighters who come forward, giving him openings to counter. Crawford, however, stayed elusive, switching stances, and creating angles that left Canelo chasing shadows. His jab disrupted Canelo's rhythm, and his lateral movement neutralized the pressure. Third, tactical rigidity. For years, critics have noted that Canelo rarely shifts strategy mid-fight. When his plan works, he dominates. But when it fails, he struggles to adapt. Against Crawford, that flaw was exposed. He kept plodding forward, hoping for openings that never came. Finally, the mental battle. Carrying the weight of being boxing's biggest superstar can be exhausting. Against Crawford, that burden showed. Canelo looked frustrated, out of answers, and vulnerable, a rare sight for a fighter who built his career on composure under fire. Comparing the three biggest losses. When you line up Canelo's three defining defeats, a clear story emerges. Mayweather taught him youth and inexperience were not enough against mastery. Bivol showed that size and natural weight classes matter. But Crawford proved that even at his best weight, even with experience, Canelo could be beaten. That is why this loss feels like a turning point. It wasn't about external factors. It was about decline.
I feel a champion, no matter what. You know, I win no matter what, and I still feel a champion. So it is what it is. You need to take the loss and accept everything. But I'm gonna continue. To do it.
The aftermath of losing to Crawford. The implications of this loss are massive. For the first time in over a decade, Canelo is beltless. His negotiating power with promoters, broadcasters, and rivals has diminished. His aura of invincibility, carefully built over years, has been cracked. Physically, the toll of over 65 fights cannot be ignored. Mentally, questions about hunger and motivation loom large. Fans and analysts are now split. Some believe he should chase redemption. Others argue it's time to walk away.
In the world of comparisons that we live in right now, if you can, compare and contrast the fight between yourself and Floyd Mayweather Jr. and tonight's bout with Terence "Bud" Crawford, if you can.
No, I think Crawford is way better than Floyd Mayweather.
Future scenarios for Canelo. So, what's next? A rematch with Crawford is possible, but risky. Another defeat could permanently stain his legacy. Returning to super middleweight to defend against rising stars like David Benavidez could reignite excitement, but it's also dangerous. Moving back up to light heavyweight after the Bivol defeat seems unwise. Retirement, though unthinkable for a fighter of his pride, is a realistic option given his wealth and accomplishments. Another possibility is reinvention, changing trainers, adopting a more tactical style, and prolonging his career like Bernard Hopkins once did. Whatever path he chooses, the next move will define how history remembers him. So, is this the end of Canelo Alvarez? In some ways, yes. The aura of invincibility is gone. The Crawford fight proved that he can be outclassed at his natural weight by an elite contemporary.
The 13th round.
You go into the fight and you knew from the early rounds on that this was a different fight.
And Canelo standing his ground in the center of the ring, unlike in the first fight when he pretty much went straight onto the rope.
But in other ways, no, his legacy as one of the greatest Mexican fighters ever is secure. He is still a global superstar, still capable of selling out arenas, and still dangerous to anyone who underestimates him. Yet the clock is ticking. One more defeat, and the calls for retirement will be deafening. For now, the story of Canelo Alvarez isn't finished, it's at a crossroads. The world waits to see if he will rise again, or if we've witnessed the final act of a legend. What do you think? Is Canelo's era truly over, or does he still have one last great fight left in him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more in-depth boxing breakdowns.